Well, here we are, everybody. My explanation video to what I think kind of happens in the BU. I might not be 100% on everything. Probably not. Basically, it's a group of 7 boys who are friends. And they have a happy life, which shows in, their flashbacks and leading up to's and all those other things. And then they have that massive falling out that costs one of them their life. And basically, after we go through all that, we get to how we saw how it used to be. And then I think that for me, the biggest thing about the I Need You era is that it kind of is a good representation of the grieving process and the aftermath and the downward spiral that happens because of the aftermath. Comes in and kind of creates this cycle of problems. And one of the things that ends up happening, each member kind of has their own struggle. I think that at that point, I think to myself that one of the most interesting pieces is that Jin is the main character, from what I'm told. But the thing that I find interesting is probably one of the most major plot points for me was J-Hope. I noticed that he was the one who developed the drug problem. But the thing that I find most interesting is that I think that that's the canon event that ends up creating a timeline where they're able to go back in time to prevent it. That's what I think kind of happens. And around that time too, they kind of make it a bit climactic, not really anticlimactic, it's very climactic. That's the point where you see RM at the phone booth, and obviously we know I wish I could love myself part. Then afterwards it kind of has this whole thing with going into the blood, sweat, and tears era part of it. I think that the crazy thing is that is when I noticed something that I never noticed before. So first and foremost, obviously we know about the whole Abraxas and the story of Damien and the loss of innocence and the loss of childhood and growing up and understanding how the world works causes that. And I think that that's what really kind of shows on this one. But the one thing that I found that's really, really interesting, and I'm going to show it. This is the scene that kind of changed the whole perspective for me, is this. That small little scene right here. I think this is in the canonical line, the end for this character. This is Tae jumping to his death. That's something that I noticed here. And this right here, the reason why he goes back is because this is him saying goodbye to Tae. That is what I noticed here. And I'm going with that. Yet this is still the new timeline. So that right there is kind of a huge loss of innocence. And I think that that's one of the reasons why this particular part here actually mattered so much. I think that that's kind of where all of this really, really changes the whole perspective of the BU for me. So at this point, this is where I think they go back in time again. And then I have the lessons that I feel like each one of them learned. That is, Jin cannot change the past. He cannot change the things that have happened in his life. Suga, at that point, realizes that he needs to be able to feel and experience things, let himself be able to have those moments RM learns, don't let the experiences pass you by. Some of us know that we need to do it. Some of us see it happening, and we still don't take it. The difference between Suga and RM's spot here, I think, is personally, one didn't notice that that was the change, and the other one saw it and didn't take action. The other thing is, too, is this is where Jungkook comes in, and his whole thing is that when the opportunity is there, take it. I think that's the biggest thing. Then I think for Tae, for V, and his story, is the fact that bad things happen, and no matter what we do, we have to be able to go through them to learn. So I think for Tae, like, he understood that he needed to be like the one to give up to the police, let himself get arrested. He's the one who did all the terrible stuff. He realized that, like, maybe there was some financial problems and the whole thing. I think that was probably the biggest thing for him, is that he had to learn how. He basically learned that you have to go through these because there's a learning process. I think the difference between Tae and Jin for this is that Jin actively tries to change the past, whereas Tae accepts and tries to move forward in the difficult situation. I think for J-Hope, his is forgiveness, learning to love and accept with what has happened with him and what has happened to other people, and that what has happened to you does not define you. So I think the interesting thing is, I'm going to kind of go off on a little bit of my own, a little bit here. So that's this spot right here. This is what I think is actually one of the more interesting pieces. I think this spot right here is the moment when he goes back in time to try and change it again. But he's greeted this time. I think that this is the original BTS members from I Need You. And I think that the changing here, the big old melding spot here, is that this area that they're in looks like the area from Blood, Sweat, and Tears. And this is the point of the two timelines overlapping. That's what I think. I know I might be off, but this is kind of what I'm feeling here. That's what it's telling me. And I think that when he puts the mask on, I think that's when he actually has learned to accept that, this is where I need to take that experience and let it be. Because to me, what I think is right, that I find so interesting about Fake Love, is that the one person who saw everything was Jungkook. And so I think the interesting thing is that even though Jin is the main character, I think that at this point in time, Jungkook is the one who is given the ability to see what is happening every single time they try and go back and change the past. So I think that that's why from there on out, I think that that's when he starts to try to take advantage of every situation that he can. He knows what the necessity is. He knows that since you can't change anything and the same things keep happening over and over again, you might as well take the good when you can. And I think that's actually kind of an interesting thing, because I think that is actually the reason why Jin learns at the very end that he decides not to go to meet the girl. And because of that, that it shifts the whole timeline. And I think it's because I feel like that is the moment to take advantage of. And because of that, it changes everything. And I think because of that too, here's something that I find really interesting. Because the fact is that they kept trying to go back and correct what has happened, it actually is an actual line or loop. It's a loop of those members having to relive all those moments again and again and again. And in a sense, that makes me feel really sad, because obviously you don't want to live out the worst part of your life, your whole life, over and over again. And I think that that's why this spot, and when Jin decides not to meet with the girl at, is the reason why all this kind of comes to a bit of a positive end. So for me, the interesting thing is that the whole thing ends with Jin in his apartment and walks out into the rainstorm. And I think the interesting thing is, for me personally, that was the sign that he decided to move on. He decided that this is the moment that I realized that I can't rely on others to make me feel the way I should about myself. And so because of that, he walks out into the rain, washes himself of the past, is basically the idea. And so, and then, at the end, it shows him reminiscing of the days of when they would get in the truck and drive down to the beach and, have fun and do all that other stuff. That's a brief summarization, but I think the interesting thing is, honestly, for me personally, I think that the whole feeling is that this is a really creative way to teach self-love. I think for the idea of teaching self-love, and I've said this in the video, you can't have somebody else teach it to you. You can know about it, you can hear videos about it, but the idea is are you able to apply it to yourself? And I think that that's kind of one of the reasons why the ending, with Jin in the apartment, is the way that it ends. Because I feel like that he realizes that even though you have beloved friends and we try so hard to keep them in our lives and lean on them to get us through the hard times, it's us that learns how to self-love. It's us that teaches us how to do these things. And if you don't have, I think there is a definite point where you can say that it's good to have a good support system, because it'll help you learn those easier, for sure. But I think at the same time too, you have to learn that for yourself at the point where you can, that you can actually be able to realize and recognize these things for yourself and put it into practice by yourself. Sure, you can have all the help in the world, but like the old saying says, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force him to drink. And I think that's kind of what this has been trying to tell you, but in a very poetic and really kind of cinematic way. And I think that's one thing that I love, is that I think that for me personally, that is one of the most impressive things, is that they're able to kind of in a very clever way show you how to love yourself, but then also tell you but it's up to you. You have to do this, and we can't help you. And I know for many army, there are many army that really shows that you understand this. I think Army is very, very smart on this. And I love all the feedback that I've always gotten. I've always loved how I've been treated by Army. I think that that's actually been one of the most impressive things. But, having that support system is very much necessary in a lot of senses, because, I remember there's a saying, show me who your friends are and I'll show you who you are. Something like that. And basically the idea is who you hang around with is the idea of how it forms your own opinions about yourself and the world around you. And then you got to take that into your personal life. That's kind of how it feels to me. So anyway, I'm probably really far off on this. But anyway, that's what I have gleaned from all of this. And it's just, like I said, done in such a poetic way. I really love how they did this. I think it's really, really gorgeous. So, anyway, thank you all so much, and we shall see you in the next video. Goodbye.